So it all started on August 11th when I went to go pick up a ranchu I had seen online at our local fish store. But the guy had already been sold by the time I made it to the store. Thankfully, though, that's when I laid eyes on the most beautiful goldfish I had ever seen in my entire life. I really loved ranchus, and I hadn't taken any other goldfish until I saw this guy, but it was quite apparent at first glance that he was going to need a lot more care and a lot more attention than your regular goldfish. I was informed that he was actually left in an abandoned building when COVID shut everything down, and janitors had found him in a 10-gallon with barely any water in it, just trying to survive. And I can't believe he's alive till this day. So I came back the next day, and they had discovered that it was not actually swim bladder causing his issues, but he had a very large kink in his tail. So he could control his swimming up and down in the water column, and he wasn't having much trouble with staying upright, but whenever he would get excited, he would do these very intense somersaults, and he didn't really have a lot of control over his swimming at this point in time. Overall, though, he was starting to eat. He seemed a lot more excited to just be alive, and I mean, look at that face. You can't deny how cute that face is. So as I continued to return to visit my little guy, I noticed that he was really learning how to control his speed by slowing down and taking things easier. He would still definitely do the somersaults when he got excited or saw anything he liked and lose a little bit of control there, but for the most part, he was doing so much better. It was also a lot easier for him to be able to eat food, and he was starting to put on some weight. And his ammonia burns were also starting to heal, so he was doing very good. We were supposed to pick him up quite soon, but he started to kind of take a turn for the worse. He wasn't seeming as excited to eat. He seemed a lot more lethargic, and overall just didn't have that same zeal for life he had when he was first brought in. But he was still healing and everything, so they asked if we could give him a bit more time to see what they could do for him, because they didn't want to give us a sick fish, or at the very least give us the healthiest fish they could. Sadly, though, it wasn't something that was in the cards for him at this time. So we came to pick him up on August 18th, and that's when we realized that he was just kind of done with everything. He had decided that he was no longer going to swim, which was causing ulcers to form on his stomach. His ammonia burns had healed, but he just wasn't eating, he wasn't putting on weight, and as you can see here, this was the majority of his day. It was just spent existing, and he seemed very upset. At this point, the local fish store took him off the floor, quarantined him in their back room, and said they would see what they could do, but they really weren't promising much. A few weeks later, though, I went in to pick up some fish food, and I was asked if I wanted to bring my goldfish home. I had never been so excited or so happy. Here you can see the kink in his tail from above that causes all these issues that he has. But I guess during his time in quarantine, he just made a total 360. He was very happy, still, as I said, doing his somersaults, but overall regained that zeal for life. Here is him being released into a very terrible 46 bow front. Because it was such a surprise, we just rushed to do a water change. We didn't clean the glass. We just wanted to get him into his home and acclimate him as soon as possible. So we turned all the lights off and let him just kind of relax, but he was so excited. There was no bringing our little guy down. So we realized at this point that he was still having some swimming issues. So shortly after this, we actually took all of the hardscape out and we put some softer things in there for him and kind of watched as he regained his mobility, let's say. This is a few days before we ended up doing the final scape for his tank. And you can see here that there isn't really anything in the tank but the fish. However, he is able to eat. He was very excited. The couple months that we had him at home, it was just nothing but good times. He learned how to prop himself up onto his fins and not on his stomach, or lay on top of the moss, so he no longer has his stomach ulcers. And he loves his little buddies, and he's overall such a happy fish. At this point, we decided it was about time to give him a nice looking home, and we finally scaped out our 46 Beaufriend, and he's in love. He loves to just dig his little head through our plants and uproot them all the time. We don't mind replanting though, and as you're replanting, he'll actually come and nuzzle your hand. He's very loving and sweet, and overall, still excited, still does his little somersaults, but I'm so glad he's alive and well, and we enjoy every single day that we get to have him and give him the best life.